Hello and welcome back to the channel, the Fandom podcast. We are here doing our end of year rankings today. We've just filmed our film one, so make sure to go and watch that. But this is going to be ranking the shows of 2022. Because it's been a pretty decent year for shows, I'd say. Aaron's obviously here with me.
Hello there.
And yeah, I mean, we'll get into it because we've got quite a few to talk about. Think I'm going to start off again because I have a few more than Aaron that I've seen. So, yeah, getting into it. In last place, 16th place, I've got She-Hulk. After Miss Marvel, I wasn't too hopeful for this. And then I saw the trailer and I wasn't too hopeful, but I was trying to be optimistic. The first few episodes were okay, not great. And then, I mean, we got about halfway through the series and it kind of just fell apart. It was getting very repetitive. Every episode would just be, she gets in legal trouble, sorts it, and then that leads into superhero trouble, and she fixes that. And then she has some personal problems on the side. And they were trying to make it funny, but she got a bit annoying, in my opinion, towards the end. So yeah, She-Hulk's in last place for me. 15th place, I've gone for Miss Marvel. Another Marvel show. And I mean, they've not had the best year this year, Marvel. It started off quite well, I thought, as a fun, like, teenage show mixed in with a superhero show. And then they brought in all this stuff about other dimensions and just all that weird stuff. They made her go back to, was it Pakistan she went to?
Yeah, Pakistan or Bangladesh. No, Pakistan.
Pakistan, yeah. She went back there. It got into some more mythology, and it just kind of slowed down and got a bit weird and boring. And then the finale was good, I thought. That was actually really good. Because it went back to the more fun style. So, I mean, overall, Miss Marvel, not the best. Better than She-Hulk, I'd say. But it was a bit weird and it almost mixed two genres. 14th place for me, The Book of Boba Fett. One I was actually looking forward to going into this year. We reviewed it on the channel weekly, and I mean, it was more of a Mandalorian tie-in than a Boba Fett show. And what was the problem with that was the best episode about this was where it focused on the Mandalorian rather than Boba Fett. It was the first few episodes with lots of just explaining how he got to where he is after Return of the Jedi. And so the story in the present day wasn't moving forward that much. Just, it wasn't that interesting in the end. And it wasn't as good as I thought it could have been. And I think because they've unmasked Boba Fett now and they've tried to make him a good guy, essentially, it's just lost a lot of what was cool about the character originally. So yeah, that's 14. 13 for me was Afterlife season 3. Great show. Ricky Gervais both created it and is the main character in it. This is the last season of the show. I think the only issue with this season was the first 2 seasons were very good at mixing comedy and emotion throughout the whole season. As this one started off focused on a lot of comedy, and then about halfway mixed into emotion more. So it just lost a lot of the appeal of the first 2 seasons, I thought. But still quite good, I'd say. So yes, that was 13 for me. Do you want to do your number 12, Alan?
Yeah, I'll do my number 12. So, number 12 for me, I'll just a disclaimer, the first four I'm about to mention might be some of the worst shows I've ever watched, if not the worst. Number 12, Cobra Kai season 4. Uh, Extremely cringy Disney um, Disney show sitcom with absolutely terrible comedy, terrible storyline, and the whole thing fell to pieces after the first couple episodes.
Okay, yeah. Um, Number 12 for me was The Umbrella Academy season 3. Um, it wasn't horrible, but it was probably the worst season so far. I think they handled the transgender character well. I can't remember the name at this point, to be fair. They
Vanya.
handled that quite well. Yeah, that's it. Vanya, now Victor. They handled that quite well. Kind of interesting story, but it's just, I don't know, it just wasn't as fun and creative, and it didn't have the same feel to it as the first two seasons. So yeah, it kind of fell short. And overall, the show isn't great anyway. So yeah, that's number 12.
Okay, then next up for me, number 11, She-Hulk. I was right with it for the first two episodes, maybe. Um, like first like two, three episodes, it got all right, and then it got really boring. I mean, Marvel isn't meant to be um like a sitcom kind of. It wasn't even a sitcom. What would you call it? It's like a
It's almost a legal show, but a comedy at the same time.
yeah,
But like an
but
adult comedy. It was
yeah, but
weird.
the comedy wasn't great. Um, and the episodes weren't good at all. So yeah, I'm just glad the episodes were only 20 minutes long because otherwise I would have to bear the torture for longer. So yeah, She-Hulk. And the only part it got good was when Daredevil was introduced in the
Oh yeah,
eighth
yeah,
episode, just because of the fact um, he works well with She-Hulk, like with Jennifer, and it made it work well there. And then Daredevil's also just amazing himself. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Number 11 for me is Solar Opposites season 3. We've got lots of season 3s, I've just realised. Um, but yeah, Solar Opposites season 3. This show probably isn't the most well known. It's made by the same people as Rick and Morty. Um, I'd say this is probably the best season of the show so far. It'll probably always be compared to Rick and Morty, and it's not quite got the same witty humour about it. And just, I don't know, the same feel to it as Rick and Morty. So overall as a show, it's not as good. I think this season was the best. It did have quite a lot of clever comedy, I thought. It's building on the characters a lot. And yeah, I think it was decent, but not as good as a lot of the other shows on this list.
All right then. So my number 10 is Miss Marvel. I think you summed it up pretty well. The first, I struggled to get into it. The first couple episodes were a tough watch, and then episode three, there were hopes that it could be alright, and then they threw the whole thing away in episode four and five, where you know they weren't even trying in episode five. It's just the thing. Um, oh, you know the part where the woman disintegrated, and
Oh yeah,
then
yeah. That
yeah,
CGI was
and it was
horrible.
just like it looked like a plastic skull. It, what does the Marvel universe come to when you know that's happening? That that's the level we're getting. And not
Yeah, yeah,
it's ridiculous, really. Um, yeah. But the finale did save it for me, as
yeah,
it wasn't terrible, and it was a solid 7 out of 10. It just they did it well.
yeah, yeah. Number 10 for me I've just realised this is the highest Marvel show of the year. It just shows how Marvel have struggled this year. Number 10 is Moon Knight. It it started off well, like Alan said, with the other one. It started off well. It was solid. It had a good mystery about it, and then it started to unravel the mystery, and I was still very interested. I actually loved. I think it was episode 4 with the twist at the end. And I thought episode 5 was a good look back at his past, and good at answering questions. I think that the season finale just kind of ruined it with the main resolution of the show being in a blackout. It just didn't work. They killed the main villain during a blackout, and it just I don't get why you do that really. Obviously kept some mystery. For when they revealed his other personality at the end in the end credit scene. Very interesting character. I'm excited to see more of him. But yeah, it could have been much better if they just brought it to a close in a nicer way, I thought.
Alright then, so my number 9 is Umbrella Academy Season 3. It was, I think it was going to go terrible when they took the spotlight away from 5, and then they gave it to Luther, who, Eden Gallagher, who plays 5, is an amazing actor, and you get to Luther, who isn't the greatest of actors, and then you pair him with bad writing, whack him into the spotlight, it's just not going to end well. And so that's why I thought the Umbrella Academy Season 3 went awful. He really corny, cringy kind of stuff. The storyline was okay, I guess. Saving grace really was 5 when we got to see like small parts of him, and Klaus when we got to see him as well.
Yeah. Number 9 for me is Rick and Morty Season 6. And I actually kind of wish this could have gone higher on the list. But some of the ones towards the top are just better than it, unfortunately. I think this is one of the best seasons of Rick and Morty we've had recently. Seasons 4 and 5 weren't great, so this is a good return to form, I thought. Felt a lot like earlier seasons, and some of the stories they were doing and the ideas they were doing in the episodes they had. It just kept that witty comedy. It introduced a new villain well. Vic Prime. He looks like he's going to be like the ultimate villain of the show, and he seems like a very interesting villain, and I can't wait to see where that goes. And yeah, just the way it kind of gives these characters such development throughout the season. I thought this was a great season for character development and setting up that Rick Prime story. Plus having great standalone episodes throughout it. I had a few episodes that weren't as good. I think it was episodes 6 and 7 I didn't enjoy that much. But the others were all solid to pretty great. So yeah, Rick and Morty Season 6 is 9th.
Right then, so my number 8 is the Book of Boba Fett. First episode we got into was good. You know, we got to see Boba Fett like acting with the Tuscans. But no, first couple episodes it was really good. You know, we got to see him interacting with the Tuscans and helping them through stuff like the train coming through. I thought it was great, but then later on, you know, we start to get the people on the bikes. That was weird. That's not meant to be something on Tatooine. It's meant to be something on maybe Coruscant. You know, the underworld of Coruscant is people with you know, when exactly is this desert planet that they've always set up in Star Wars to be in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden they've got these like interesting gadgets and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought it was It was terrible, this part. And then we got to the finale, and I was thinking, okay, this could be alright. And then I thought about how underwhelming it was. We haven't really got anything massive set up. We don't really know. The Pike Syndicate, I don't really care about because we know he's going to get killed. Cad Bane, um, I guess he was the saving grace of the show, really. What you can call a saving grace. Um, and yeah, then Boba Fett just comes along and kills him too. I think that was about the only death of the show we saw from Boba Fett himself. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so the main issue with the show was um, Boba Fett was far too friendly. He wasn't a. We need to see more of a violent kind of Boba Fett, which sadly we didn't see in this. So yeah, that was Book of Boba Fett in eighth.
yeah, yeah. Number 8 for me is Tales of the Jedi. It's a series of shorts, so you can't really get much from it. Well, they're fairly short anyway. They weren't full-length episodes. I think this one for me was very mixed. I think the Count Dooku episodes were great. That was a great story. It's something they brought up in the films that I've always been interested in seeing, like how he turned to the dark side. So I think that was shown very well. The bit that disappointed it a bit for me was the Ahsoka episodes. They just felt a bit unnecessary. You got one of her just training with the clones, which felt it was a bit boring and, like I said, unnecessary. Yet one of her as a child, which I found a bit confusing. Again, I didn't see why we really needed that. And then the last episode was alright. It saw her after Padme's funeral, trying to move on. And like I said, it was alright, but I think the Ahsoka episodes were much weaker than the Count Dooku episodes. So yeah, overall quite decent. Probably could have been better though. So that's 8.
Alright, the next up for me is Moon Knight at the number 7 position. Moon Knight was the first episode was brilliant because they chucked him into a world that he didn't know what to expect the character, so that made us not know what to expect either. And then it was quite good to see the kind of mystery about it. And then from there, it started to drop off. Each episode got worse each time, and then we get to the finale. And looking back on it now, underwhelming. To say that two literal gods are having a fight, while nobody realizes it, and the whole thing just felt unrealistic. Something like that would be almost an Avengers level threat, but I guess the Avengers aren't there right now. But you'd think it would attract a bit more attention, other than just Moon Knight and Layla.
Yeah. Okay, number 7 for me is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really enjoyed this series. I thought it was great to see both, obviously, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader back fighting it out. Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen have also always been great as those characters. I mean, this series, it was good. We saw him obviously trying to run away from Darth Vader almost at first, and then just going and fighting him. The finale was incredible in my opinion, with that final fight scene, and Vader's mask being slashed open. It had a few weaker episodes in the middle, I'd say, which kind of let it down, and I found Leia a bit annoying at times. I know she was meant to be a cute kid, but she just got a bit annoying in my opinion at times. Um, but yeah, it had plenty of action with Kenobi and Vader to make it a very solid series still, and something I really enjoyed. So yeah, that's number 7.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out here because I did accidentally miss out a couple shows. You know me. So that
Oh,
was your number 7 just then. So did I
yes.
put Moon Knight as eighth?
You put Moon Knight as 7th.
Okay. Well, everything drops back one. So Cobra Kai season 4 is 14th. She-Hulk 13th. Miss Marvel 12th. Umbrella Academy season 3 11th. Um. Oh wait, no. Book of Boba Fett 10th. Um. Moon Knight 9th. And in my number 8 spot, we have Kenobi. Um, I think you said this pretty well. Uh, the show, the, the first episode, well, like the first couple episodes were more of a thing kind of packed together, so they didn't feel as great. But we get to see it progress slowly, and then we get little hints at Vader. I thought Reva, for all the complaints she got, I didn't think she was as bad as people said. However, there was still room for improvement with her character. Um, yeah, the finale of this, the last 2 episodes, were some of the best Star Wars we've ever seen. Just because of the fact that Vader, we finally got to see Vader just be the absolute menace he is after he rips down the ship. I thought that was amazing. Too good for Star Wars. And then the finale when he has a fight with Obi-Wan, also amazing. So, yeah, that is Kenobi in eighth. Just a quick thing. Do you reckon I should? What done here?
You do your 7th and
Yeah.
6th
Okay,
to get
so
back to where you were.
yeah. One sec. Can you quickly just pause? I've got to figure something out here.
Yeah, sure. Okay, we're back.
Yeah.
Aaron's gonna do his number 6, I think.
Yeah. Bit of complications, but we figured it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so number 6, Tales of the Jedi. Um, I thought the Ahsoka episodes were a bit boring. Nothing really happened in them except for the last one, which I thought was actually was brilliant. And then the highlights of all this was the Count Dooku episodes, where we got to see his connection with Qui-Gon, um, and how he's turned to the dark side, and even Yaddle's death, which is something a lot of Star Wars fans have been wondering for a while, and now we get to see it here. So yeah, that was great.
Hmm.
Um, so that's Tales of the Jedi at number 6 spot.
Okay. My number 6 was Wednesday, which has recently come out on Netflix. Um, the Addams Family, the original films, will always quite iconic films. So I can imagine it was quite difficult to bring a new adaptation of the Addams Family, but I think it was done quite well. Um, Jenna Ortega as the main character is just great. She really captures almost the spirit of Wednesday and her attitude. Um, it's almost it's a mystery, almost murder mystery style, which is a very interesting route to go. But I think it worked well. It always kept you on your toes with the mystery. You never really knew. It was never really clear who was actually going to be behind it all until right at the very end when they revealed it. It slowly gave you more information. And it was great character development as well for Wednesday. So yeah, I think as a series, this was very solid. Maybe a bit overrated online. Those people are going crazy over it. I didn't think it was that like anything amazing, but it was very solid, like I said. So yeah, that's my number 6.
Okay, then my number 5 is Stranger Things season 4. I would put this higher, but I think the top three and even the fourth place are just absolutely brilliant. Um, So, Stranger Things season four, they split it up into two parts, and the show didn't feel rushed at all. I thought they did it well. They did it great, and nothing felt wrong with it. Um, Maybe uh, I like the fact that they all split off into their own different sections, all of them in their own different groups, which I thought was great, and then they all end up meeting up in the end, ready for the final season, where it looks like everything's. It looks like the underworld. No, not the underworld. Um, the what's it called?
Upside Down.
Yeah, the Upside Down is merging with the um, with the Hawkins. Christ, I can't speak
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
I can't remember much about it, but I remember that, and then I think they do it quite well. But however, there's just like I said, better shows out there, and um, maybe they could have cut out maybe an episode. This, maybe slotted it in somewhere, made it a bit faster. But I thought some of the comedy was there, like Murray. He was great in this, and yeah, I think it was decent. So number five, Stranger Things season four.
yeah. Number five for me is Andor. Um, Again, I thought it was a great show. My top five now are all like quite close. But they're all great. Um, Great Star Wars show. It was a bit slow getting into it, so I struggled to get into it at first. Um, but when I sat down and just dedicated my time to watching it, and I really got into it, the story progressed well. And it got very interesting. I think I don't know. I've never properly watched Rogue One. But the character of Andor is obviously a very interesting one. It's a very different feel for a Star Wars show, but I quite like that because they're not just sticking to the generic, template of what Star Wars should be. Um, I mean, yeah, especially standout bit to me is when he's in the prison. I can't remember what it's called. Is it Narkina 5 or something? Something like
Yeah, yeah, I
that.
think so.
Yeah, he's there, and just their escape from there is a standout bit of the show for me. I think that was great. And it had a very solid finale too. So, yes, that's my number five. Very good show.
All right then. So my number four is Rings of Power. The Lord of the Rings lore is already really complicated, so I had to look up a few things for this. Um, Especially going into a different time period too. But we get to see characters like Galadriel. Um, I can't remember, but we get to see characters we know from the classic Lord of the Rings. Um, Again, I like this how we had the different groups set up, like the people in the Southlands, and then we had the elves. King. Oh, what's the dwarf king called again?
Doran, is it? I got that
Yeah.
wrong.
Wait, what was his name again?
Doran, I think.
Durin, that's it. King Durin and Elrond. I thought that connection in the show was great. Good to see their chemistry. And then we also, who else was there? Gandalf and the Harfoot. I think that was well, Gandalf was great to see as we get to see his kind of connection. Well, we get to see him with the Harfoots, which a lot of people believe are the hobbits, and I guess that kind of explains how they are linked. How Gandalf has such a good friendship and respects them, because obviously Poppy, no, not Poppy, is I can't remember her name, but anyway, I thought I thought it was great, and yeah, I think Rings of Power, even though a lot of people hated it, I thought it
Mm.
works great, and props to Amazon Studios, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. My number four is also Rings of Power, and I think Aaron summed it up quite well there. Um, yeah, just the different groups of characters, like you said, Elrond and Doran was a great friendship. I loved to see that whenever they were on screen. We obviously had the Southlands. We had is it Numenor, I think it was.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that was an interesting storyline. I'd never really been the biggest fan of Lord of the Rings before. I'd enjoyed it, but I'd never known that much about it particularly. But this really got me interested in Lord of the Rings. And I'll still need to go and rewatch the films at some point. Um, yeah, just all the different groups, all the way they all link together without them all just coming together and meeting and being in the same place. I think that worked really well. Like Aaron said, the stranger being Gandalf was interesting. I didn't really expect Halbrand to be Sauron. I've got to admit. But I thought that was quite interesting in the finale. And yeah, I think it was just a great look at what came before Lord of the Rings, and I thought, like Aaron said, Amazon have done it really well here. So yeah, that's my number four.
All right then. My number three. I'll go without saying the top three here. If I could have them all in first place, I would because
Oh yeah, yeah.
uh, yeah, these three were so good. So, in third place is Better Call Saul season six. Um, Better Call Saul was thing is with prequels. Um, they're meant to show how a character has changed over time into what we now know into what we know as Saul in Breaking Bad, and way he the way they do this season is brilliant. I mean, it goes from it works well with they show how Gus changes over the time. He gets paranoid about Lalo Salamanca, who Tony Dalton played brilliantly. And also there's heavy spoilers here, so if you don't wanna, if you are watching it, you can skip ahead like a couple of minutes. Um, Lalo's death by Gus. Uh, Gus just stands over him, and Lalo's just laughing while choking out blood. Um, the show was amazing overall, and I think have to be one of my favorite characters. Um, throughout this whole throughout watching the whole thing was Nacho Varga, and his death just topped it off perfectly as he accepted he was going to die, and so he went out with an absolutely brilliant speech. It wasn't really a speech, but he went out with just you know saying how he Hector Salamanca, how he put him in the wheelchair, and it eventually ended with him shooting himself, which is sad, but uh, you know that's how. It was a good way. It was a realistic way of showing what happens when you enter the drug business and how sometimes the only way to get out of it is by death. Um, Looking on the other side of things, like Saul to Jimmy, um, at the end of the season when he's in Nebraska, um, we get that speech in the final episode when he's in the court and he goes, he finally changes back to Jimmy after he says what he really means and how he's sorry for his actions and how he's almost scared of Walter White. So yeah, I thought that was amazing. Um, I think how he manipulated everyone in the whole show was brilliant. Uh, there was a great comedy in this too, as there was one point where Jimmy and Howard have a boxing match, and I thought that was just too funny to see. Uh, and also quite sad how what they did to Howard, how they ruined his whole reputation, and he eventually died as what people know as a druggie, and then he ended up I don't know washed out on the street, well, washed out on the beach in California, even though him as a character he was the only morally good one in the show, I believe. He didn't really do anything wrong, maybe to Chuck, yeah, and but other than that, he was a good character. So it was sad to see him go, but overall, the show they've just done it perfectly, and as a lot of people say, bravo Vince. So yeah, that was Better Call Saul season 6.
Okay. Number three for me was Peacemaker. Like Aaron said, my top three are very close. I kind of wish they could all be number one. I loved the Suicide Squad last year. Um, I think me and Alan both did, and so I was very excited when they announced the Peacemaker show. Um, I think Peacemaker's the first role where I've actually thought John Cena's acting was like good. Um, and he does a great job in the role of Peacemaker actually. Um, this could be one of my favorite superhero shows of all time. It's definitely better than Marvel's shows, I'd say, any of their Disney Plus shows. Um, yeah, I think Peacemaker was a character in the Suicide Squad that I didn't really care about that much, and so this show just made me care about him more. It made him one of the standout characters in that film. Now, I'd say. Um, I don't know, the way they put him on this team, and he has to learn to work with the team. I thought just that story and his character development was great. Seeing where he came from and his backstory, and how his dad forced him to fight his brother, and he accidentally killed his brother. I thought that was pretty brutal. And I thought they put plenty of comedy in there as well. He literally has a sidekick that's an eagle, so you know it's very funny. Brutal, quite gory, still like the Suicide Squad was. And yeah, just all the way throughout, great story, great action. Vigilante as well. I forgot to mention him. He's a standout character from the show as well. Again, very funny. But just I don't know, just a great character overall. And yeah, I think the team of characters they put in at first don't seem that interesting, but by the end you learn to love this whole group and this whole team. So yeah, Peacemaker for me was one of the definite standout shows of 2022. Can't wait for season 2. And yeah, that was my number 3.
All right then. So my number 2 is Andor. Um, we have the Aldani. Well, the highlight of this whole thing was the Aldani heist. I think that whole episode, from start to finish, went perfectly. As we get to see almost everyone die except from Cassian and Vel. And is it who's the person that Vel's in love with?
Can't remember.
Anyway, but she survives as well. But um, it's brilliant to see that how the whole thing progresses. It's got a very different feel to classic Star Wars, and I think one of the reasons why it works so well is because of the fact they let go of the hope kind of thing, and they made it more serious, more mature, and that's why I just think something different for the Star Wars community. I just think it works brilliantly. So, that was Andor. Characters in this as well, the side characters like Luthen, he was amazing. Cassian's mum, which as we see in the finale, the whole part of that goes brilliantly. As there ends up being a massive fight on Ferrix as the Imperial rule ends, and the Ferrix people have a massive fight with them. I think one of the highlights for side characters in this show was Cyril, who was a police officer, police investigator. I can't remember. On Narkina 5, and way they progressed his character into almost becoming like a small character, into big like a really small job, and then he wants to break free of that, work for the Empire almost, just hunt down Cassian Andor, and I loved it, and I thought his character was the best in the show, probably. So yeah, that was Andor number 2.
Okay. My number 2 was Stranger Things 4. One of the best, well, probably the best Stranger Things series so far, in my opinion. It's a very long series, but you learn a lot. It, like Aaron said, they're split up. Lots of the groups are very funny, very interesting work. I think the group with Will and Mike and Jonathan, that was always a bit of a, not a bad like bit of the show, but it was a bit slower, a bit more boring in my opinion.
The weakest part, you mean?
Yeah, the weakest part. Yeah. I think Vecna is a great introduction to be the big villain of the whole show. You obviously learn a lot of answers about how Vecna was behind it all. They obviously reveal how he is. It was Henry Creel, but also number 1. And yeah, this just ties together everything, gives us some answers, but not all answers. It manages to have an incredible season finale, finish perfectly, so that they've given us enough this season for us to be like very happy and amazed by what's happened, but also teases and sets up what's coming in the final season, season 5. And I can't wait for season 5. So yeah, Stranger Things 4, definitely an incredible show. One of probably the best season of Stranger Things so far, and my number 2 on my list this year.
All right then. So we go down to number 1, Peacemaker. Brilliant. First of all, John Cena, as you said, as Peacemaker, absolutely brilliant acting. As you know, he can work both sides of a comedian and someone that has a really depressing backstory. The side characters of this were amazing, like Vigilante, Harcourt. I don't think this is actually his name, but Diebeard, who I love how they always annoyed him about how he dyed his beard. They constantly annoyed him about that, and that was brilliant. The villain of the show, like the fly things, and then they have to kill like a massive pig at the end of it. Is it a massive pig or?
So they call it the cow, don't they?
Oh, that was it. Yeah. That was it. It was interesting to say the least, but I think classic James Gunn style, it works. If we're going off other side characters as well, the comedy for all of this, I think personally my favourite comedy part of all this was the which part was it? Yeah, when the annoying the neighbour comes out and talks to Peacemaker, and then he constantly talks about him like Batman. Eventually, he loses it. And that was funny. The finale, my favourite scene of the show, when he goes up to. He's about to fight them all. He's got the shotgun and the stuff. He has the shield, and then Harcourt and Vigilante also go out. Do you want to taste it is on in the background, and then they just kill as many of them as possible, and it's brilliant. So
yeah.
Peacemaker overall, I think, just about better than Better Call Saul and Andor, but still, if I could have all 3 of them together, I would. It's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. My number 1, my favourite show of the year, is The Boys season 3. The Boys was a great show already, but this season just added an extra level. It pushed everything up a level, upped the outrageous comedy, upped the character development, upped the storytelling, brought in these new interesting characters like Soldier Boy. Really made Homelander just absolutely crazy as kind of the villain who's meant to be the hero. I've always loved like the idea of The Boys as a show, of a world where a show where almost the superheroes are the villains, and how they have to try and take down these superheroes because they're corrupt. I think it's a great spin on a superhero show. And I think that, like I said, this season ups everything. We get episodes like Hero Gasm with outrageous moments. And yeah, we also, my favourite thing about this season is how they upped the action, because they gave Huey and Billy Butcher temporary Compound V, which gave them powers, obviously, which really just allowed so much more, because they're not just fighting kind of in the background technically to take them down. You actually get action scenes between them and Homelander and Soldier Boy. So I think that just ups the levels of the show, makes it even more insane. Really gassed me up when you get Homelander and Billy Butcher fighting in the Hero Gasm episode. I think the season finale is just incredible, with them all again fighting in the Vought Tower. Soldier Boy trying to take down Soldier Boy, stop him from like doing his weird explosion thing. I don't know how to explain that. But yeah, and the last shot of the whole season as well, with just Homelander there. He's got fans all around him and protesters all around him. And someone just comes out and he just kills them for like speaking against him. And then the crowd is just silent and just erupts in cheers all of a sudden. And the way he not only has the creepy smile, the way it pans to Ryan, his kid, and his kid has a creepy smile as well. It's just an incredible season of what was already a great show. So yeah, I absolutely loved this show. An amazing season, and yeah, my favourite this year. So that is it for our rankings this year. Thank you for watching, and thanks for watching all year, obviously. We should hopefully be back with some videos next year, shouldn't we?
Yeah, obviously, I think you explained it well in the Black Panther video. Make sure to go check that one out. Um, you know, we've decided to put an end to the Fandom podcast on a weekly thing, just because it became too much for us. And we'll still have videos next year, just not as often as you may think.
Yeah, and slightly different, more focused, specific videos. So yeah, make sure to look out for them. Like Alan said, go check out previous videos. We had to keep explanations very brief in both this and the film ranking. But throughout the year, we've obviously done proper reviews of them in podcast episodes, and obviously in a Black Panther review. So make sure to go back and watch them if you want to see full reviews. Yeah, thanks for watching this year. Have a happy new year, and we'll see you next year. Bye.